Welcome back. Counting down to pre-open, the SGX Nifty has cut its losses, now down only about 36 points. But let's see how the actual opening is. Prakash Diwan is still with us. So Prakash, that comment on Coal India.
Coal India, yeah. No, so nothing very spectacular about the numbers. You know, the way it seems that advantage of better pricing, better shipment, all of that has been priced in. But you know, there's always this overhang of some misadventure where there's allocation of capital in something which is not non-core for the business, and that definitely doesn't, you know, bring that premium back to Coal India ever. So even if the numbers are good, it won't probably, you know, be disappointing in terms of price performance, but there's nothing spectacular about the numbers that you would want to buy it right now.
Are you a risk taker? Would you buy Jet Airways after the fall that we've seen in the stock?
No, so interestingly, you know, you need to figure out how they managed to bring the losses down on a Q&Q basis as compared to the howler of a number that was expected, maybe 1,800 crores or 1,700 crores was what the whisper number was. So there's something which has started probably working for them, and hopefully, because, you know, there are a lot of people who are stuck in Jet Airways at higher levels. So Tata Motors and Jet Airways, these are two stocks where you can have queries at any show, any program, and you'll still not be, you know, satisfied enough with the replies. So Jet Airways, if something has started working for them, my sense is, you know, the market would want to see that, and if there's some sort of continuity in that process, and with crude remaining at closer to 70, 72 dollars, it could actually be. By the way, the festive season rates have actually gone up significantly without anybody offering any discounts of sorts. Indigo had launched a quiet discount scheme, which they've actually stopped publishing or marketing very aggressively. So if you see the pricing right now, I'm sure the CASK, the RASK will start improving going forward as well.
Okay, the important part is very good opening for the rupee. It's not looked at the risk aversion, it has looked at the crude price.
Oh yes, definitely. And you know, the big earnings, we actually forgot to discuss, that is Jindal SAW. That's up 20% in pre-opening. I think that's interesting. 20% higher on Jindal SAW is what you have right now. But yes, I think Lata, the market will react more to crude, and you know, that's what it did yesterday as well. So let's see currency opening as well, and you would want to see the bond opening as well today,
yeah,
right? Because
bond opening would be positive, probably because of both crude and the inflation number. So that could also be a positive for the markets. We will have to see really what supersedes what. Whether these inflation numbers and crude numbers are more what the market looks at, or whether they look at the global risk aversion. And considering that we already fell yesterday, perhaps some of the bad news is already factored in. But really, the market will keep us guessing, and we have to look at the screen to tell us that. At the moment, the rupee has opened 10 pies stronger. The dollar is 10 pies cheaper. Although globally, against the majors, the dollar is very strong at 97.5, that index. It's normally an indication of risk aversion, but the rupee has been spared the blushes. Opened stronger than yesterday's close.
Tata Motors is down about 4.5%. The ADR was down, of course, yesterday. But you know, yesterday the stock also fell. So just you know, bear that in mind. ADR was down 7%. It's fresh rhetoric from Trump, so that's also having an impact.
Oh, absolutely. And the numbers, the core numbers have been really weak, right? The ones from JLR. So that's what the stock is reacting to. A couple of more stocks, actually. You have Jet Airways. The first tick on Jet Airways was down about 10%. Let's see how that settles. It's still down almost 10% post a very weak set of numbers. Coal India reported a good Q2. You know, their EBITDA performance, the operational performance was quite good. It was on a low base, but you know, the average selling price was much better than expected. Dispatch volumes grew well, so Coal India up almost about 4%. And then you had those howlers from the banking space, right? Bank of India, UCO Bank, both reporting losses in excess of 1,100 crores. So both those stocks are down about 5% or so. Yeah.
Just want to point out, Dena Bank is up 4%. I think there's a whole you know, list of banks which will be out of the prompt corrective action, and within that, the ones which are getting merged. I think in that, that's the obvious one. So that's why that stock is up about almost 3.5%.
That was our story, that from the PCA list, the ones that can be removed are those which are coming towards that 6% net NPA, and those that are anyway getting merged.
Exactly.
So at what point that will be announced, and when that will be announced, if that will be announced, we have to wait and see. But that was the whisper, that these are the concessions that the Reserve Bank can do, because in any case, these banks are going to become part of major banks. Let's see if IDBI also is responding to the same news. But remember, all these are negotiation points. We don't know which of them are going to be picked up when finally the Reserve Bank makes its list. For the moment, the big cue has been the fall in crude prices. So let's welcome our commodities editor, Manisha Gupta. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, Lata. Thank you so much for that. Well, a percentage point gain yesterday and a decline right now is what we are seeing. So very volatile crude oil prices. But after Saudi Arabia saying that they are looking to cut output in December, and OPEC should be doing that collectively as well, you have the US president's statement saying that OPEC should not cut supplies and the oil prices should be much lower given the kind of supplies that we are looking at right now, which actually is the truth, because you have seen very higher supplies. The US production itself is at 11.6 million barrels, which is a record highs, and it is expected to be 12 million barrels as we get into 2019. So yes, there is some pressure coming in. Add to that the sell-off in the global equity markets, the US dollar index at a 16-month highs, all of that seems to be weighing in. But for the crude oil prices, I think you need to put a pivot point at $70, and then $5 plus and minus is the kind of range that you would continue to see for the crude oil prices in the next 3 to 4 months as well, with lots of events, data, the OPEC meeting itself on 6th and 7th December, and various statements that you would continue to see will keep the crude oil prices quite volatile. A quick word on the metal space, where we have seen yet another day of decline. So you have the steel prices, the rebar trading at a 4-month low, the hot coil steel is trading at a 6-month lows, nickel continues to hold around 11-month lows. So there is really no respite when you look at many of these metal prices.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that. By the way, you have Oil India that's moving up this morning. CLSA has upgraded the stock to a buy from an underperform. They say that the net profits missed estimates because of a large one-off forex charge, but because of the fact that the companies will have assumed no subsidy burden in Q2, that will actually, be beneficial for them going ahead. It's up almost about 2% right now. Prakash Diwan, any thoughts on Oil India? Operational performance was good this time.
I think this is one of those unsung heroes in the PSU hydrocarbon pack. We get so focus onto the OMCs that we actually forget the upstream business, which is going to be fairly profitable. The kind of asset build-up that they've done, if you see the improvement in their gross block in the last 2 years, it's significant at very, very reasonably low costs. So that's going to start, throwing up the ROEs in a very positive way. I also am positive on EIL as much as Oil India. So, if I were to buy a basket of these PSU hydrocarbon players, it definitely features there.
Okay, actually, there's been a recovery even in the Hong Kong market. At one point in time, it was around 25,150, and now it's climbed to 25,500. So there is a bit of a recovery.
This is one reason I believe that we should have just like SGX Nifty, at least the index trading
through the day.
Because this morning clearly SGX Nifty at one point was down 90 points, and now it's down only about 28 points. And for all you know, today you might not see red at all. In fact, the markets could well move into the green, because the basic factor that led to the big fall yesterday is back to where it was, which is the Brent crude. Today could be a day of actually some kind of short covering in a lot of names. But there are a couple of other numbers which will be important. Godrej Industries, let's see how the market is reacting to that. Up a bit, and Nalco as well, up about 0.5% is what you have. Sudarshan, I wanted your thoughts on Oil India, if you've seen the charts.
Oil India?
Yes.
Yes, Oil India is a buying opportunity. Actually, that sharp decline tells us that there is something, there is some kind of base building there. So as an investment buy, I would go for it, but it's not a trade.
Okay. But at the moment, nothing's settled. The Sensex is still indicating a green tick, and the Nifty is down just 0.3% at this juncture. iShares is still down 2.2. Tata Motors, of course, lower. And even some of the banks, ICICI is still down about 1.3. Let's see. These are pre-opening rates, so we can't be too sure of how things might pan out. Anything in the results season that in the last few numbers that stood out for you, any of the smaller companies?
Oh, JK Paper was one.
Oh, yes.
Very spectacular set of earnings. And it also tells us that the paper re-rating could probably resume. If JK, which is one of the largest plays in this segment, can manage to have these numbers on a significantly larger P&L, even the smaller players will be able to outshine the expectations at least. So that was one. And of course, among the larger ones, you had Britannia, which continues to but continue to feed the debate whether these kind of multiples are justified, whether growth could, what's happened to Page, what's happened to Aisha, what's happened to a Maruti is exactly what could happen to Britannia as well.
Oh, okay. So I'm saying caution there.
No, yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying, they've got everything working well for them, but they, when there's an element of peaking out.
Scale up in growth is hard.
And on
valuation, not growth.
Yes, valuation.
Okay.
They'll continue growth, but which most of these big players have managed to do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Maruti's growth, but you're not valuing it at 25 times, it's 18 times, so that's where the change could happen.
Just a couple of more stocks that I want to look at. Jain Irrigation, actually, the profit growth is much lower than what the street was estimating. So, that stock is a bit under pressure right now, down almost 0.6%. And you have Jet Airways that is still down almost about 3% or so. Ashwini, what would your 9-10 call be?
My call is to take short positions on Nifty and Bank Nifty, obviously on a rally. And Tata Motors DBR, that's a sell with a stop of 104, target of 92.
Okay. Mitesh, your thoughts on market opening and any interesting idea for you at 9-10?
Yeah. So I think, one opening around 10,450, not with a big gap down, I think might, I would be interested to take a long if we, start recovering in the first 10-15 minutes. And on the stock side, I think buying into Cummins would be the top idea for the day.
Okay. So Nifty Bank is starting a little lower than the Nifty itself. But again, pre-opening rates, let's remember that. And some of the NBFC stocks are showing a little bit of green. Not a whole lot, though, just a little bit. We have to wait and see. The rupee is, meanwhile, fairly strong now. It's, I think, 72.65, I thought, for the dollar. So that's clearly indicating that it has read the crude oil price as more important than the global risk-off. And that's significant. And as well, Hang Seng, that also is helping Asian markets. After having already fallen and seen that risk-off, are now probably picking up, so that recovery in the Hang Seng market should also be propping up both currencies and Asian equities. But let's see how far the good going lasts. Sudarshan, anything that has come into your radar now?
Well, yes, the Nifty is a short. Divide your trade in two parts. Take a short at the open after 5-7 minutes and another on a rally. You have to be a judge of what the rally is. The Nifty Bank is an easier short on because I think it's going to break down a little more. Sun Pharma, surprisingly, is a buying opportunity only intraday, but consider it.
Okay, that's a salve, is it? All right. The Nifty Bank, what would your contours be, you said, Sudarshan?
Well, the Nifty Bank is a short and 26,000 is the stop where you put it. These are positional trades. We are not talking of intraday. We can have a lot of volatility inside the day.
Actually, a lot of auto stocks are under pressure, not just for specific reasons. Of course, Tata Motors has JLR issues, Eicher Motors has the results, but even M&M ahead of its numbers is down about 0.5% or so. Hero MotoCorp, Maruti Suzuki. We were telling you earlier on that the festive season has been the worst over the last many years, and almost a 15% fall is what we've seen in retails this time around. Prakash, would you be circumspect on the entire sector, or would you look at it as an opportunity to buy?
No, I think till middle of next year, things could remain uncertain given so much of, potential policy headwinds. There's a lot related to regulation which is expected. There's so much of disruption that's on the cards from electrification of vehicles. So, you have too many vectors that are at play at this point in time. Two-wheelers might not be such a bad pocket, Sonia. As much as commercial vehicles, we ignore the fact that we've got Ashok Leyland numbers. If those numbers don't disappoint you majorly in terms of margin erosion or drop in margins, I think the market will start looking at different pockets than just PVs. So, yeah, there could be rotation within OEMs within the pack in terms of what is likely to do well better than the others, but I don't think you can write it off, especially the two-wheeler pack, so easily right now.
Okay. Still about a couple of minutes for the markets to open, and the yields have opened about 3 basis points lower, 7.77. Again, that should be a positive for some set of stocks, but that set is not very cheered at this point in time. Let's see when the market opens. I mean the NBFC set. Prakash, yet again, I mean, I know you've been asked this, but what will you pick in that pack?
NBFCs. Do I have to pick is the first question?
No, you don't have to. You can say, I don't want to.
But if I do, no, so I'm just coming to that. There are a lot of people who have to have these allocations which make sense. I would still go with something which is very pedigreed, like a Chola Finance or a L&T Finance holding. You know, something which is much more diversified and not just focus onto one pocket. So the monoline NBFCs are out at this point in time. You would look at slightly more diversified basket of businesses. And then that would, like, Chola is looking at, you know, you look at the corporate ad campaign that they're running. And it's very clearly reassuring people of the pedigree and the strength of the group as a whole, you know. So, yeah, I mean, you look at something which would be able to withstand this, this storm of sorts till probably December end.
Okay. Well, we still have about 40 seconds for the markets to open, and it's not giving us any further clues, except that some of the bad results are getting punished, like Bank of India, and UCO Bank, and some of them are getting rewarded as well. Okay, oil marketing companies, meanwhile, are leading the charts. HP, BP and IOC are all up. Coal India is up about 1.3. So that, again, is a results reward. Let's wait and see. It's kind of this way and that. For the moment, it looks like the Nifty Bank and the Nifty are going to open marginally lower, not a whole lot, but you may take positive cues from the way in which the rupee market has reacted. There goes the bell. It's 1/3% lower now. The opening tick, 40 points lower for the Nifty, so that's 10,444. And the Sensex is opening 120 down, that's 34,683. Again, 1/3% down, so it's not at the moment taking cues from the rupee market. The bank Nifty is only as bad as the Nifty, about 0.4, 0.35 down. Mid caps also a similar fall. The stocks that are in the red, of course, results, Bank of India's kind of stocks are down. But first, let me read the green brigade. It's all the oil stocks. HP, BP, IOC are up about 2%. And Coal India is getting congratulated for its numbers. It's up about 1.4. Again, oil sensitives like Asian Paints up about 0.5%. That's the green brigade. What's in the red? Aisha, 2.7 down. Tata Motors, 2.5 down. Hero Motor, 0.8 down. So autos not the flavor of the moment at all. Z Entertainment, Vedanta, Adani Ports, Yes Bank, Bajaj Auto, Titan, Kotak Mahindra Bank, all of them down about 0.5%. But the Nifty is not losing much. From 0.3, it's now come down to a 0.2 loss. So just steady as it goes.
Okay, well, the mid-cap index is under a bit of pressure, down about 55 points. That's 0.3%. The market breadth is weak, more than 780 stocks on the declining side. But it is the crude-related plays that are really surging up today. So you have aviation stocks. Interglobe Aviation is up 2.5% right now. HPCL, the oil marketing company, is up about 3% or so. You have paint companies, Berger Paints, tire companies, Apollo Tires, all these stocks which are looking very good because of the fall that we've seen in crude. So that's one pocket that, the street is latching on to. Oil India, on the back of the numbers, as well as the CLSA upgrade, is well in the green, up almost about 3%. Jet Airways, after the numbers, we've seen a 70% fall in the stock already. So there's a bit of a recovery that the stock is seeing. Of course, it pales in comparison to the fall that we've seen over the last many weeks and months. In terms of more result reactions, Bank of India is under pressure after that huge loss of 1,100 crores, so 2% lower. UCO Bank as well, a loss of 1,136 crores. Motherson Sumi, ahead of its numbers tomorrow, is down in the red, down almost about 1% or so. And we've been talking about Aisha Motors, of course, that cut in production target and the weak numbers there. Good numbers, you have Aurobindo Pharma, there is Coal India, there's Shree Cement, where there's a 20% top line growth, but the stock is under a bit of pressure right now. And Nalco is also reacting to its numbers. It's flat at the moment. Otherwise, it's really a flat opening. The big takeaway really is the crude related plays. All the crude beneficiaries are now up.
HPCL was down 6% yesterday. It won't surprise me if at least gains 6% and perhaps a bit more, because at the end of the day, that was a bit of a false reaction on the market. So that is the one stock that you would want to look at through the day. And I think Jet Airways, as Prakash was also pointing out, the quarter-on-quarter loss has actually been not that bad. And, they're talking about further cost reduction, This morning, this Mint report about Tata starting the due diligence. So that, I think, and there are a lot of shorts in the system. Today is going to be a day where, a lot of, shorts in some of these stocks might want to cover, just like you saw the move in Wockhardt yesterday and previous day in Voltas. I think these are a couple of stocks that I would really want to keep an eye on. Ashwini?
From the market that the rupee market is celebrating the fact that there is a rapprochement in the Reserve Bank.
And
there will be
crude.
no accidents.
Yes.
So it's less of crude. I mean, well, this is just a market guess. That for them, it's a very big celebration that there is no accident in the central bank.
Yep, Prakash, your thoughts on oil marketing companies? You reckon there could be some more gains?
Oh, absolutely. See, we've forgotten the fact that there is this potentially positive trigger of the government taking that 1 rupee hit out. And when that happens, when it actually was brought in, you had a 20% hit on the downside. When it is taken off, you could probably have a 10% hit on the upside. So that's one way, and then that's one of the reasons why, if you see, the shorts come screaming to get covered every time there's some good news in this thing, and particularly, the Iran thing, which was one of the big reasons why the overhang on the Iran sanctions was one of the reasons. And today, you have a Donald Trump tweeting about OPEC should not be, getting into this cut. It's not some diktat that he is in a position to come up with. I mean, so crude is something which is much more global, and it's not in the hands of just a couple of people or just a few announcements that could. So that if the trend is bearish and it continues to be bearish the way it seems, oil marketing companies will have to catch up.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and what about Jet? Buying at 2% higher?
No, so I told you I think Jet will see some takers. The high beta play will come back to Jet. As Sonia said, it's been a stock that's been cursed from that 600 levels to 200, sub 200 level was so furious that people have actually lost faith that this could ever turn around. But these are exactly situations where you have turnaround making a lot of sense. So, and this is a beleaguered player. There is a need to turn this around. It's an industry player which the government can't afford to let get into a sunset of sorts. So yeah, I mean, if the metrics start looking positive, and I'm waiting to hear what's worked for them in terms of bringing this cash losses down.
Yeah, in fact, they have an analyst call later in the evening at 4 p.m. today.
Yeah, that'll be very,
so we'll
very keenly
more
heard,
clarity on that. All right, thanks Prakash for joining us. We also have a lot of the crude sensitives which are doing well today. So let's get some technical calls in as well. Ashwini, you were making this point earlier. Would you trade any of the crude sensitives on the long side? And if yes, what would they be?
See, these are lame trades. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that there are 3 banks which are higher. If this was, so positive for banking, etc., a few more banks should have done that. Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, PFC, REC, everything is making lows of the day. So you have to be cautious, trusting whatever upside you are getting. And I think the financials finally look like they are going to fail. Now HPBP, the decline in crude prices is in. The last dollar may not give you as much, but I think the banks look weak to me, and that's where the opportunity to short may be there.
The Shanghai market has moved up into the green.
Yeah.
So that may be at the moment restricting our losses.
Oh, yes, I think the Nifty is about to turn into the green at any point, almost about 6 points down on that. Mitesh, your thoughts? Are you buying this minor bit of red tick, and is there a stock that you're looking at?
Yeah, so Anuj, the idea was to see if the 10,450 level holds and then attempt a long. So we have taken marginal long positions in the index, and that apart, I think, some stocks which are looking good among the crude beneficiaries. I think the paint stocks are also, kind of showing good patterns, and the one which I like between Asian Paints and Berger Paints is possibly Berger Paints. That can be bought with a stop at 297. And Tech Mahindra is also showing good traction on the upside. I think could be a good stock to watch. While HDFC Bank and Infratel are 2 stocks which I would trade on the negative side.
Okay. Sudarshan, any further thoughts?
Well, the Nifty is now almost flat, and this is a good time to start to take your short positions and be prepared for a lot of volatility. 10,600 in the cash Nifty is your stop loss, and 26,000 for the Nifty Bank.
Okay, by the way, Eicher Motors, just look at the stock intraday now. I think this morning the market wants to believe this is really the worst for Eicher Motors, and just look at that stock pile on this. This is big, perhaps a bit of a turning point for Eicher Motors. after opening lower, stock is now down only about 0.5%. So that could be a very interesting move from here on. Let's see if that's how it pans out. But gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining us and taking us through market opening. We have Sandeep Bhatia, Head of Equity India of Macquarie Capital Securities, now joining us. Sandeep, hi, good morning. Thanks a lot. Of course, you're having your conference, so good luck with that. Your thoughts on the recent market action? It's been quite volatile. We're reacting to a lot of cues like crude, elections. How are things stacking up overall?
Well, I think we, from here on till April of next year, will be the full-on volatile season. So it is akin to the typhoon season, which comes in the US. So we will have a lot of volatility, and please buckle up and belt up for that. I think as far as India is concerned, on the economic side, we see a clear trajectory of earnings growth improving. We also see a clear trajectory of capex coming through, and companies like L&T start doing well. We also see the healing of bank balance sheets, which has proceeded over the last 3 years. We see some movement on NBFCs, which needs correction. I expect the RBI and the central government to address these issues. The real challenge in terms of market volatility will be from the political side. And we have elections in November, December. We have elections in April. So those will be the volatile times. But I would be a buyer in any market correction for all the reasons we just gave out, especially corporate earnings growth and improvement in capex.
Well, Sandeep, just want to point out that at the moment, actually, there's a recovery in all Asian markets. The Nikkei in early morning was down over 3%. Now it is down 2.5%, 2.49 to be precise. The Kospi was down 1.6%. Now it is down 1.06%. The Hong Kong market is almost, Hang Seng is almost in the green. It's down about 13 points. And of course, the Shanghai index already went into the green. So there has been a bit of a recovery across Asian markets, and more particularly in the Asian EMs. It's not so much Nikkei. Nikkei also recovering, but Hang Seng recovering a little more handsomely. And that's having perhaps a positive impact on the Indian markets as well. Remember, we have got FII numbers which have been positive for the last 3 days. Sandeep, good morning to you. And that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. What are your foreign investors whom you must be meeting at the conference telling you? Is there now a slight reversal of the DM-EM trade? Had valuations gotten way too stretched between the two? That's the general question. Specifically for India, are people turning positive? The FII numbers seem to indicate something.
Thanks, Lata. I think I will just answer your question in 2 parts. One is what's happening at the conference. So we have 230 plus clients which have come through from across the globe and from India. What I see is still the beginning of this conference. What I see is a clear interest because not only we see very good turnout coming for some of the speaker sessions that we are having, but the 65, 70 corporates that are coming through, we see a very good sign-ups for that. So clearly there's belief in the corporate micro story of this country. The domestic investors continue to see good flows. So I definitely see support whenever the market corrects. There's definitely support. As far as the India-specific question is concerned, I think India is very well placed in the entire emerging market group of countries. Macroeconomics is actually improving. And more importantly, I think something which is not discussed in many business channels is I think India is favorably, very favorably placed geopolitically in the globe. The 90s and the 2000s was the age of economics. It was just about which country would give the highest GDP growth. I think from 2015 onwards, the globe has entered the age of geopolitics, and clearly India has played its cards very well. And to that extent, I think across emerging markets, India will continue to be a favorite because not only it's a strong GDP growth story, but it is positioned probably one of the best in the entire emerging market universe in terms of its geopolitics. This actually needs a separate session and in-depth discussion, and this is probably not the place and time to do it, but India will benefit from both these trends: strong GDP growth, corporate earnings growth, and very favorable geopolitical scenario.
Okay, so we'll have to have that separate discussion in detail, Sandeep, later. But, you know, coming back to the earlier point you made about earnings growth, your view doesn't really match the views that a lot of other brokerages have given us. I mean, CLSA recently just scaled down their earnings target for the full year to 10% from 24% earlier. A lot of other brokerages have followed suit. How are you so optimistic? And don't you believe that we could end up with sort of maybe single-digit or just low double-digit earnings growth for the year?
I wouldn't think that we are in the single-digit frame, because clearly the entire financial sector will show good growth. And I've mentioned this on this channel before. Actually, a fall in rupee boosts earnings power for most corporates, and we will see, therefore, earnings growth also helped by the correction in rupee. I would think that earnings growth for the broad market would be in the 15% region, and for indices, it would be in the 18% region. Anyway, I think this is something which we will see unfold over the next 6 months.
Okay, by the way, Eicher Motors is now in the green. So the point that we were making, let's just look at that chart fly now intraday, and that one is now in the green and by quite a bit. Sandeep, I see that you have Maruti as one of your top large cap picks. Your thoughts on what's going wrong with the stock? Of course, it's trying to put a bottom in place, but it's underperformed quite a bit.
I think this Maruti price correction has been a combination of two factors. One is the valuation correction which has happened in the broad market. Maruti was clearly leading the pack in terms of valuation going up when the market was performing through 2015 to 17. And 2018 has seen this process of correction, and Maruti has got impacted more because on the way up it was also benefiting more. The other thing which has happened, which is a very short-term phenomena, which is the September-October numbers which have come through. And those numbers have been disappointing as far as the market is concerned. I would look past these numbers and look at what's happening in terms of new product launches and what's happening in terms of the dynamic of the market. In terms of new product launches, I think very good, strong new product launches, both in terms of Ertiga, which is around the corner in this month, and Wagon-R coming next year. These are high volume products in the mid-priced segment, which can actually help margins and raise ASPs for Maruti. So that's very good news. Also, in terms of what's happening in terms of Euro 6 norms, in terms of fuel emissions, in terms of safety norms, which are coming in for the entire car industry in the next 12 months, I think Maruti will be one of the best placed in terms of putting these added norms in place into its cars and also still having the lowest cost per car. So this is clearly very positive for Maruti margins, and we continue to like that, especially at these levels if you take a 2-year time frame.
Okay. Sandeep, at the moment the rupee is showing a little bit of strength, and clearly, I mean, at least the messages indicate that there is a big relief that there is going to be no major accident in the Reserve Bank of India. The news that we reported yesterday that Governor Urjit Patel flew down to Delhi and met the Prime Minister, and therefore there is a rapprochement being worked out, very, very positive for the rupee market. That would have been the market which would have been, a little upset if there was anything negative coming in. On that note, Sandeep, the rapprochement as well as your view on the debt market itself, do you think the worst is over, and therefore will you start fishing in any of those NBFC waters?
So, I just have to go by news reports, and the basis of what I see in your channel and other channels, I can see that clearly we are not going to have any major accident between the government and the Reserve Bank of India, and that's a very welcome development, as you have mentioned. As far as the broader debt markets are concerned, we actually have 2 speakers that will address that in our conference. My own view is that the debt market needs more discipline. It needs some corrective measures to be put in place, which I think the RBI will definitely look at putting in place. And we will go through a period of a correction in the growth rates of many NBFC stocks. And that is something which is very healthy and will be also very painful. So as far as the broader debt market is concerned, I think the NBFC space is to be watched closely. and there's clearly going to be a contraction of growth. And also, we will soon know, which business models were sustainable and which business models were taking excessive risks. So I would definitely hold judgment on the broader NBFC space, but I think it's good to see both the key players, both the Reserve Bank of India and the central government, move together.
Okay, Sandeep, have a great conference. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. By the way, just want to mention that for Eicher Motors, there is some positive news flow that has come in. The workers have, according to news reports, ended the strike at the Royal Enfield's Tamil Nadu plant, and they will resume work as well today. Remember, the strike was on for 50 days, and because of which the company faced a production loss of 25,000 units. I just reached out to the management. They said they will give out an official release in just some time from now. But news reports are indicating that the strike has come to an end, and that, of course, is a big positive for Eicher.
That is why I think the market started to react the way it did on Eicher Motors, and the stock now moving well in the green, up about 1%.
Quite separately, of course, both the Chinese market and the Indian markets are responding, I think, to the lower crude price. These are the two outperforming markets today. Okay, well, with that, let's shift focus now to earnings. The Nalco stock has been subdued despite good earnings. The fear probably is that strong alumina prices, which boosted Q2, have now reversed, and the coming quarters may have to bear the brunt of lower alumina prices. T.K. Chand, Chairman and Managing Director of Nalco, joins us now. Good morning, sir. Before we discuss the numbers, what is your take on the alumina prices? What is the average for October and early November vis-a-vis what you got in the second quarter?
Good morning. We have our last tender of alumina price was $488, and till now average is 509 because one shipment which was there earlier booked by a customer at a high price, he has taken that one, and today one tender is likely to be opened in afternoon time, so we'll have to see that what kind of a price is coming. And alumina prices have moderated. That's what is we have seen.
What was the average in the second quarter, alumina average?
Second quarter average or first quarter average was 555, second quarter was 524, and third quarter we are expecting that it will be coming down.
So the latest tender in November was at what rate?
Last tender was $488.
488. What are the expectations?
That was 5th of October, 25th of October.
25th of October, all right. What are the expectations as far as prices go for both alumina and aluminum over the next 6 to 12 months?
Alumina, right now, alumina market prices, there are no abnormalities are there, and market is quite normal, driven by normal demand and supply. And since Chinese smelters and ex-China smelters, they are having inventories, so naturally the prices have moderated. So we expect that alumina prices may be hovering around between 430 to 480.
And good morning. So your realization was 555 in the last quarter. So this quarter it's going to be sub 450 perhaps? That much market needs to price in?
Our first quarter average realization was 555. Second quarter it is 524. And this quarter we are expecting that realization will come down because up to now realization is around 509. And we have to see that what kind of price are coming after this 488, and today is the tender, it will be known.
Okay, well, the rupee depreciation at the moment is not a great deal. We are ruling around 72.60, 72.70, but how does it impact you? Is it positive for you or negative for you, the depreciation?
Depreciations?
Yes.
Depreciation, it will have the price, coming down of the prices will definitely have an impact on us. And we are expecting that our EBITDA margin will be somewhere in the second half of that is H2 of this financial year. It may be somewhere around 23 to 24% because in the H1 it was around 34%. So overall in the year, our EBITDA margin will come around 28%.
Okay, 28%. That's what you did in this quarter as well. So I guess around these levels itself. What about coal availability? Has it improved recently? And how much is coming via linkages now?
Availability of coal, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Coal position continues to be like that. And 2 of our units are continuing to be under shutdown. And we are importing power from the state grid. That also power is sometimes available, sometimes it is not at that desired level. So that difficulty is continuing, but we hope that with the coming of the winter and the production picking up in Coal India, they will be able to supply the desired quantity.
Okay. Keeping in mind the availability of coal and of power from the grid, what do you think will be the capacity utilization in the second half? Can you give us something in terms of million tons of aluminium?
As far as aluminium is concerned, our target is to get 4.4 lakhs. And I hope that we will be able to do that thing. Even if coal availability problem is there, we have also lined up import. So some import component will come and it will supplement. And with power drawn from the state grid, that will also be a factor. And in any case, in the last quarter and in the second half of the year, generally supply from Coal India, that also improves. So we expect that all these things will help us to realize the target that we have put. And as far as alumina is concerned, we will be definitely achieving 100% capacity utilization.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us and talking about the way forward. That's NALCO under a bit of pressure right now, but they expect the supply situation, coal supply situation to improve going forward. Let's take a short break on that note. We'll come back and get more result reactions lined up. Do stay tuned in. We'll also get our focus back on the markets as well.